Critical Pulse is slowly becoming my favorite weapon in the game, as boy oh boy, with 1.4 we can have some serious fun with power surge builds. Obliterate enemies, erase them from the battlefield in both PvE and PvP, with all the new build possibilities this weapon comes with. I've spent days preparing my version of the Critical Pulse build many people are playing with right now. This one though has a slight focus on Lunar Oracle and PvP scenarios, as we don't just want to hit like a truck, but also add survivability, prevent getting one-shot ourselves, survive these Blood Moon events. So today I'm gonna share everything you want to know about it, where you can find all the requirements like blueprints and mods, so you don't have to search through dozens of videos before you can get rolling with the build. So what are we waiting for? Let's get down to business. Quick disclaimer, the only downside about this build is that you're probably not going to be the only person running around with it, especially on PvP servers. I see a lot of people use it right now. And yes, if you get spotted by your enemy before you see them, you will probably hear the bzzzt and it's game over. While in this video, I'm gonna also help you to prevent getting one shot, give you extra survival tips so you can deal with most situations basically, have a lot of fun in both PvE and PvP. Anyways, let's start off with the weapons. The primary weapon obviously is the Critical Pulse. This one can be purchased from the Wish Machine, which I very much recommend you to do. Specifically with the Blueprint shop, you can pick it up right here for 8,000 Star Crown. The nice thing is, this one comes with a ton of bonuses. It triggers continuous power surge on hit, with a 70% chance to generate deviated particles near the player. You can pick these up to enter a charged state. Continuous power surge can also trigger every 0.5 seconds within 3 seconds of the current target, and stacking up to 5 times. While in this charge state, hitting a target consumes one of your charges to create an orb of lightning, which deals shock elemental status damage. This damage benefits from your power surge upgrades. Bonuses have a 5% chance to also generate deviated particles lasting for 3 seconds. You also have a 30% bonus to shock elemental damage. If we have a closer look at my specific weapon right here, this one actually comes with the portable style calibration. I like this one for mobility, movement speed while firing, weapon switching speed, and movement speed while holding a gun. Especially the last one for PvP is amazing if you want to just have swift feet on the battlefield and dodge your enemies a little bit easier. The weapon switching speed can also contribute to dealing more damage, which we're going to talk about with the Cradle Overrides. But probably the main reason why I want to go with portable is because precision comes with a reload speed of minus 25%. The attack bonus does sound nice, while we heavily rely on that reload speed, which maximizes our damage output. Especially for PvP, if you have that extra reload time, this might be fatal if, for example, you miss your first shot and you really don't have enough time to basically reload and take a second. On top of that, it's also important you focus on a calibration with double elemental damage. Especially the secondary roll right here is pretty sweet, plus 11.9%, but of course calibrate it to the maximum, find these bonuses, and it's gonna hit like a truck. As secondary, we're gonna take my favorite pistol in the game, the Wildfire. This one is amazing for PvE and those Lunar Oracle events to basically heal yourself up with kills. Specific mod, which we're gonna talk about in a second, but a 60% chance to trigger the bullseye when hitting a target, 80% chance to spread the bullseye to one enemy within the 15 meters, and if there are no enemies, you get a plus 25% weapon damage. Attack plus 3 for 10 seconds up to 3 stacks as well, so all this further benefits the build if you switch weapons. The accessories which I use for this one are the muzzle camouflage suppressor, we have the compact reflex sight, integrated laser sights, and the extended pistol mag. I'm not going to share the locations for these accessories. These can be easily found if you use a Once Human interactive map. Check it out in the description down below. As a third weapon, we use the long axe. This one is really nice to give you an additional bonus with damage. Heavy attacks will activate Fortress Warfare. You don't have to hit these, but as long as you just swing your weapon, then start firing, you will have that sweet bonus to your damage, which is really the only reason why I want to have this weapon. I think it looks pretty bad as well, but with some cosmetics, yeah, you can make it look pretty funky. Anyways, just Swing it on the floor, and there you have your Fortress Warfare. Right now you're gonna have increased damage with that bonus in the bottom left. You can see that we trigger a ton of bonuses. Personally, I think the best place to farm these calibration blueprints would be, well, a Blood Moon or Lunar Oracle event. Absolutely love my Run and Saddle farm as it's still relevant for tier 5 farming. Get your hands on the best calibration blueprints. You can do something similar on another scenario, but I talk about everything you want to know about it in my video, which you can find at the top right of the screen. You can see that we use a purple mayfly goggles. This key item is amazing because it doubles your power surge trigger count. Power surge damage will be minus 30%. There is another power surge item which you can use, but personally I think this one is better. I still have to calibrate some of my gear for the maximum stats. Anyways, the set which we use, the full set bonus of Blackstone. Cold and heat resist plus 2.5 is pretty bad, but upon dealing elemental damage we gain a stack of warm sensation, so that's plus 2 for 2 seconds. Trigger one time every 0.5 seconds up to a maximum of 5. So that's a bonus of 10 elemental damage. And when the temperature is between 10 and 30, you also gain warm status. That's a plus 18% elemental damage. At 5 stacks of warm sensation, you are considered to be in the warm status. When the environmental temperature is between 10 and 30 degrees Celsius, you gain another plus 7% elemental damage. If you're playing on a regular scenario like the Primsverse, I mean everything basically except for the Way of Winter, you will always have nice temperatures. As long as you eat the right snacks, come prepared in Way of Winter specifically, you can also maximize these bonuses. Anyways, for the boots, you can also do something different. I have the Renegade shoes. These come with a reload speed of 15%. That's really nice because this allows us to fire that crossbow as quick as possible. Also a specific stat you want to focus on when rolling your mods. So let's talk about the mods. The first one, which can be pretty tricky to find, is the Flame Resonance. I'll share with you guys how I managed to find it in 1.4 because the drop places are slightly different right now. But let's first talk about the weapon mods which we use. Static Shock is the weapon mod you want to have on your crossbow. It decreases the power surge status duration by 50%. Which isn't really a bad thing, especially for PvP, because if you hit someone, the chances are high they're gonna panic or simply roll ASAP when they hear this bzzz sound, so they will leave the area, while this increases the power surge damage by 20%. Also, keep in mind that you want to focus on elemental damage and status damage. These are the primary roles you want to focus on. Max HP, damage against Great Ones, etc. can all be interesting. Specifically for PvE builds, I wouldn't necessarily take this one. I would go for the maximum power surge status duration and build up my damage. If you have 4 stacks of power surge, you will also get plus 20% right here, but you don't lose your duration. For which you would have farmed the Gaia Cliff Monolith's Treants, as this one will drop power surge weapon mods. Anyways, for the pistol, the weapon which we use, we're using the recover marks. I like to go with precision or violent. So weapon damage, damage against elites, great ones, and of course weak spot damage is going to be interesting. When defeating marked enemies, recover 15% HP and 25% stamina. This is going to make your life so much easier during Blood Moon events, because you can just simply get rid of that low HP, heal up to the maximum in no time. Also when executing enemies in PvP, the Axe mod, which I like to use, is Portable Territory. If you leave the circle, the Fortress Warfare zone basically, you will keep the bonus of your damage for 2 more seconds. For pistol and axe weapon mods, you want to farm the Spider inside the Alpha Monolith, which will drop both the Bullseye weapon mods and the Fortress Warfare. Alternatively, for all the weapon mods, you could farm the Forsaken Monolith, as right here you can find every single one of them, but you're probably going to run out of controllers before you find one of them, so I wouldn't recommend this. If we look at the armor mods, I have to do a lot of sorting right here. Apologies. On the helmet, we have a Deviation Expert. Your range will be decreased by 25%, which really isn't a big deal, but your fire rate is increased by 10% and the status damage is increased by 20%. Again, focus on elemental damage rolls, status damage rolls, damage against great ones, normal ones, etc. I think this was a pretty sweet roll for the Mayfly goggles. Once humans menus can be a little bit confusing, but for helmet mods, you want to focus on farming Securement Silo Alpha and Silo Taurus from the Way of Winter. Securement Silo Alpha comes with top mods. I mean, I checked it earlier. When we click on it, it doesn't say helmet mod. It just says top mod. There it says helmet mod. Well, if we click on something else, it says the exact same mod for all difficulties. Let me know in the comments if this is also messed up on your scenario or experience something similar. For the chest, I have a blue mod, Flame Resonance. Status damage plus 12%, but also focus on rolls like damage against great ones if you want a PvE, or other things like elemental damage, status damage. Specifically for PvP, the extra damage is really not necessary. You want to go for increased survivability. One of my favorites would be Resist Advantage. When out of combat, you gain stacks of 10% damage reduction every 5 seconds. Effect can stack up to 5 times. One though is removed when hit. So the first hits against you, they won't feel as brutal. Headguard can also be really sweet if you're up against some players with a bullseye build and are constantly focusing on hitting your weak spots. While, I don't know, you just want to focus on what works best for you. Having enemies close to you gives you damage reduction. Damage reduction plus 20% and healing received plus 20% when HP is below 30, or for example a healing fortification. When just using a healing shot, you can do it by plus 40%. Securement Silo Alpha comes for the blue chest mods. I was always running Securement Silo Sigma on normal difficulty because this is where they dropped, for example, the weak spot damage boost. Precision is one I needed for my previous build, but Flame Resonance also in the same boat. Right now, if we check out this silo, well, you can no longer find it right there. If we check out the details, you simply find glove bots on all the difficulties. Tell me if I'm wrong for different scenarios, but right now, 100% working. All you want to do is open up the map and double check the area. So this one right here is recommended level 10. So that's a low level zone. High banks, recommended level 8. Level 5 right here. Everything below or around level 10 should work, as this is where you can find these low-level chests that come with blue mods, specifically the gear chests. As you can see in these saved clips, I found one after the other by simply farming all these chests when they respawned. It didn't take long before I found Flame Resonance mods, and especially the one with the elemental damage, that's the one you want to focus on, as, yeah, it doesn't come with many bonuses. For the pants, this one is very important and you really don't have another option. When the magazine is empty, status damage plus 10% for 12 seconds, which can stack up to 3 times. It's going to be easy to stack this one as you're constantly reloading your crossbow, so reaching that plus 30% is going to be no problemo. Securement Silo Psi comes with the leg mods. For the shoes though, I like to go with this one, Covered Advance, taking no damage within 4 seconds, grants plus 20 melee weapon and status damage. I also kinda like the slow and steadies, melee weapon and status plus 8, when above it gives plus 8 once again. So during lunar or blood moon events, this one can also be interesting. Every 10% of your HP loss grants 3.2 melee weapon and status damage. We also have this one for example, Operation Chiron events with also a lot of enemies. Killing them within 10 meters grants melee weapon and status plus 16%. Really depends on whatever floats your boat. Well, yeah, this is a safe one to pick. For which you want to farm Securement Silo Psi. Right here you have shoe mods dropping on all the difficulties. For the gloves, go for Elemental Overload. Elemental damage plus 18%. Focus on even more of those attribute rolls we talked about earlier. Securement Silo Sigma comes with the gloves mods. And last but not least, we have Thunderclap for the mask. After triggering Power Surge 20 times, the next hit will summon a Thunder. Shock damage of 200% Psi intensity. Gonna hit like a truck, which is very satisfying if it strikes at the right moment. For which you want to farm Silo X1, as this one gives you mask mods. The Blood Moon is finally gone. Pretty annoying to always have to deal with that low HP and sanity, but this basically brings us to, the next one, Deviations. One that I really like to use for both PvE and PvP would be the Festering Gel, as right now we can just very quickly cure that low sanity level and of course heal ourselves while we're at it. This is one I found with a very high activity rating. Skill rating is a little bit lower, but check it out. This one comes with 2/5. If you throw this one on the floor, it will reinforce the area, so you will have a little wall you can hide behind, great for PvP, but also the healing and sanity effect, which you can expect from, well, resting in a bed. It's just way better compared to this. That would be the type of deviation I would bring to both PvE and PvP encounters, because especially for higher level dungeons, it would make it easier. However, if you're going for full damage builds, you don't really care about survivability, you want to go with the Mini Feaster. There isn't a great deviation for status or elemental damage, let's say, but if we scroll down right here, the Touch of the Abyss can continuously follow the player and summon one tentacle near an enemy every 1.5 seconds. They will smash and deal damage to this enemy, and for each tentacle summoned, the player's status damage is increased by 17.5%, up to a maximum of 70. That sounds insane, right? Well, it also is. The only problem is that sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to trigger, but right now you can see that this guy is going to hit our targets. We're going to do exactly the same. Right now it's focusing on that one, so yeah, it's a little bit trial and error, but that's the best deviation you can possibly get for maximizing your damage. I still prefer the fortification of the Festering Gel, which makes boss fights, encounters with enemies, other players, but also Blood Moon events much easier, because you don't have to worry about healing yourself. Only this heal is going to be more than enough to deal with most situations. It can be found in the Monolith of Greed. You will have a chance of finding it after you've taken down the Ravenous Hunter. This one can be done on any difficulty, while the higher the difficulty, the better the stats. You also have a chance of encountering this deviation when you open up Lunar Crates, for which, again, you want to check out my guides, which I share at the top right of the screen, while for the Mini Feaster, you're gonna have to do something different. You simply want to drive around and search for these big red circles in the sky. These usually indicate or highlight a world event. If you drive close enough to it, you will find yourself in a mist. In the center of it, there can be a Gatling gun. If you pick it up, you have to deal with either a bunch of enemy waves or a boss. At the very end, a chest will be there at the center as reward. If you open it, there you will find your Mini Feaster. Just keep repeating this event if you didn't find the right stats, as the higher the skill rating, the higher the damage will be as well for your Touch of the Abyss. A maximum of 70%, so the skill rating has to be really high if you want to achieve these numbers. You might have also noticed that little shield bar that pops up when I throw my deviation on the floor. This is a pretty nice combat shield, which we get with some Cradle upgrades, which we're going to check out right now, as this can really take this build to the next level. Memetic upgrades, the first ones, essentials you want to get your hands on first, obviously for lower levels, that would be the anti-phase. When using sniper rifles, SMGs or crossbows specifically, damage plus 15% with an additional 100 bonus to the super anomalies phase. We also want to go with tactical combo, because this increases our damage by 15% for 4 seconds after switching weapons or reloading, which is really simple. I mean, check out the bonus popping up in the bottom left right now. This happens when you're just switching our weapons, but also the reload, so you will basically have it active all the time. Also go with status enhancement to boost your status damage even further, plus 15% for 3 seconds after hitting a weak spot, which is pretty easy. Elemental sense to, after dealing elemental damage, boost that by plus 25% for 4 seconds. And then the also interesting one right here would be transient impact. Dealing power surge damage grants power surge damage plus 2.5% for 6 seconds, up to 10 stacks. So that's another 25% if you just keep shooting your crossbow. Also, steady hands. When you have a buff like the Fortress Warfare or Fast Gunner, you also get increased weapon damage and weak spot damage. This isn't super important for elemental builds, but yes, we just swing that weapon. We also trigger that Fortress Warfare while we get plenty of bonuses. One of my favorites with the new Blood Moon events as well as PvP would be the Deviant Energy Defense. That's why we get that shield if you summon it equal to 30% of your maximum HP, and while the shield is active, your weapon damage reduction and status damage reduction is plus 10%. Cooldown is 30 seconds, but still it's an amazing one. You basically want to trigger and apply at all times on your character. Bounty Hunter, when you first mark a target, you also gain attack plus 2% for 15 up to 5 stacks. Effect is removed after switching weapons, but as long as you just keep firing with a crossbow or the pistol, you basically have the maximum. Renewing the mark grants weapon damage plus 3. So also interesting, if you're shredding your enemies, one-tapping them with a crossbow basically, you will also gain increased damage. This one isn't super important. You can go with other options as you primarily want to have the status and elemental damage. If you're using your pistol frequently, this one can be nice. Well, if you want to have increased survivability, amazing for Blood Moon events, your damage received from Deviants is reduced by 30%. You could also go with this one, Rapid 8, medicine usage cooldown minus 30, and when HP is below, medicine usage speed plus 30, and the healing effect plus 15. Honestly, I kind of favor this one, because if we look at specific mods for our chest armor, right here, we get critical rescue, damage reduction plus 20%, and healing received plus 20% when HP is below 30%. So this is also really nice with that festering gel. Or go with the healing fortification when using a healing shot, damage reduction plus 40% for 2 seconds. Both of them can be really nice as alternative to the resist advantage or, of course, the flame resonance. Then, last but not least, we're going to talk about some snacks, as these can dramatically boost your damage output as well, or survivability, of course. The sparkling pumpkin soup was always nice to increase your power surge damage by 10%, but right now we also have things from the new update, like the surprise spring rolls, used to increase elemental damage by 5 to 15. The effect doubles if your HP is below 40%. You're gonna need some deviated wheat for these bad boys, some cabbage, corn oil, and also the new Lunar Whispers. Survivability-wise, the unusual braised meat, that's a deviated beet right there. Any type of meat. We've got some masala and also the Lunar Whispers. A basic one would be the canned lunch meat. Based on the type of food you throw in there, it's going to be pretty decent. If you first use the wildfire, mixed fried hot dog can also be really nice to increase your damage against bullseye affected targets by 20%. 20% is insane. Just mark your enemy with that wildfire and then go ham on him with your crossbow to also have a very sweet damage boost. That, I think, is pretty much it. If I'm missing something right here, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, I think those are the most important snacks you want to focus on. Surprise spring roll, sparkling pumpkin soup. Keep in mind that both are food effects. You can go for a drink effect as well. I think then the Stardust Energy drink is going to be really nice, as this gives you insane mobility PvP. Alright guys, there you have it. Everything you want to know about my version of the Critical Pulse build, which I think works great in both Blood Moon events and PvP encounters. If you have something to add to it, suggestions, thoughts, things to make it even better, let us know in the comments down below. Always very happy to respond right there as well if you have questions. Right now, though, it's 4 AM out. There's plenty more Once Human on the channel, by the way. But yeah, have an amazing day. I'll check you in the next video or live stream. Peace.